The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good evening, everyone. This is Jackie Grimm here with Scott Bradley. Welcome tonight to our first LEGO League New Coach Information webinar. Thank you for joining us tonight at 7 o'clock on Thursday. Scott's going to be doing the presentation. I'm going to be handling the questions. So again, thank you for joining us. Both this and Tuesday night's programming presentation will be posted hopefully tomorrow on our website, and I will also be sending out the information in next week's coach email, so stay tuned for those. And there's 2 more coach webinars next week on Tuesday and Thursday, and then another one the following week on Tuesday. So Scott, if you're ready, go for it.
Yeah, hi. So I'm Coach Scott. This is my 4th season coaching the LEGO Lassies, and I plan to share with you some of the things I've learned that I wish I had discovered my rookie year and the next year and the next year. I don't plan to go into detail on topics in other presentations or things you can read in the challenge or coach's manual or judging fact or new notebooks, but you should read those. So I'm not going to go over robot game and judging in particular, because those will be covered by someone else, but I will tell you a little bit about how to prepare for them. These are my topics, and to be honest with you, I could spend an hour on each one of them. And I have about 5 minutes for each one of them. So I'm going to go really fast. I'm going to be like a fire hose. Please type in your questions as you have them. I may have a chance to answer them, and if not, I will promise to write down the answers and submit them with the presentation. Okay, so why coach FLL? This is what FLL says, and I think they're right, that FLL is one of the best 21st century STEM learning opportunities for your team. So you need to just stay out of the way and let them grow in their own knowledge and develop habits in learning. Let them try and fail fast and keep trying. I have to tell you, the best preparation for being a coach is being a judge. Volunteer at a qualifier or semifinal in which your team's not competing. And the next best preparation is experience. You'll also notice I'm not going to read all my slides to you because I figure you're reading them while I'm talking. And I also think you're a new coach with a new team every season, even if all your students return. So always go back to ground zero. Any questions? All right. New notebooks. I'm going to cover these briefly. I think they're excellent guidance for rookie teams. A lot of thought went into these, and they're not required to be used. They assume you're in a classroom for 90 minutes. Most teams meet longer than that, like probably 4 hours a week to 5 hours a week. The team meeting guide has 12 fast-paced scripted meetings for coaches, and the engineering notebook has corresponding exercises for the students. We have 12 weeks until qualifier weekend, and this guide may get a rookie team there. An experienced team will likely not follow the scripts in this guide. Note that the first 18 pages describe the challenge, and these are not official. Reference the online challenge documents and updates. The 4 project sparks in these books are a good model to get your team brainstorming. And the judging sample questions on page 33 of this guide are excellent. Use them to prepare for judging. The rubric on page 34 is not a substitute for the real one. The engineering notebook will keep your team focused. I don't recommend you wait until session 8, 4 weeks before your qualifier, to start writing missions. As soon as your team completes the robot in session 2, start programming the crane mission. We keep a printout of the challenge in the lab, and when updates come out, we mark up our copy of the challenge. Judges will not have time to review every student's notebook. I recommend you keep a separate team notebooks for innovation project and robot design judging, but these are not required. And again, I'm going to assume that you get my slides later, so if you miss something on a slide, you'll probably get a chance. Any questions about what I've said so far?
Nope.
Okay, let's look at organization. Well, you have a question?
Nope, not so far.
Oh, I was going to say, I thought you were interrupting me.
Nope, sorry.
So organization. These are the things I think are important when you organize your team, that you have a covenant with them and their parents, that you have some good communication tools, have a plan for meeting and functional leadership, time management, and task management. I believe kids expect to have clear boundaries, and some of the boundaries are things like their behavior and parents' behavior at a tournament. We have rules like leave the room like you found it, and don't leave the room without notifying the coach, and notify the coach if you plan to miss a meeting. Kids don't usually control whether they miss a meeting, so you got to make sure your parents are on board too. Always provide a safe environment. I coach an all-girl team, so I have a woman as a co-coach. It only makes sense. Start on time, even if everyone isn't there. I guarantee you that'll help them get there on time the next time. Treat everyone with respect. Look for ways to lift one another up. Be partners, not helpers. I think that's real important, that for the kids to treat each other as partners, not one helping another, but partnering with him. And except for special occasions, I think snack time is a time sink. Provide access to water, though. And distractions include things like social media, fidgets, gossip, snacks, but problems are not a distraction. There are a lot of communication tools out there, and we use a lot. I think the kids like that. They're kind of techie these days. So we use Google Drive for all of our files because it synchronizes between the web and the computer. The kids can get at everything from home. And as they get older, they will want to do research from home and other things from home. Slack is a cool little, it's almost like a bulletin board that you define the topics that are in there, and then the kids will, and coaches can write comments in there. Our team, as we approached state last year, had 200 and some messages in the week before. So they really collaborate a lot this way. TeamSnap is what I use to connect with the parents. It allows me to know who's going to be at a meeting and send emails out to them, and it sends them automatic meeting reminders, things like that. That does cost money. I mean, the free one, there's a free version, but the one that, if you want these availability tags, you got to pay $100 a year for it, or $10 a month, something like that. And then Trello is a really cool app for doing an online Kanban board, sort of your project management. I use that personally, my wife and I and my daughter, to keep track of everything that's going on in our family. And so for meeting, that was it there. For meeting leadership, you need to have your team members identify jobs that need to be done at each meeting. Now, my girls don't like the word leader, so they have a discussionator instead of a communicator or a moderator, and a media manager and a secretary, Kanban manager, time manager, photographer. They rotate through those each week, so the name on the top of the list goes to the bottom, and they have a regular rotation. And then you have functional leadership, core values, project research and presentation. These are the ones we use, but by having leadership like that, you have an individual who can make sure the work gets done. Whereas the team leaders are responsible for work. These leads are responsible for making sure work gets done, not doing all the work. And that's an important distinction. We don't assign these until after the first few weeks. We haven't assigned them yet this year because the kids need to see each other perform in those different roles. And then they campaign and vote, pick who wants to be what. It's important to let parents know that each job is important, but not all are robot-centric. Some parents think this is all about robots, and if their kid is on a project or core values lead, that they're not contributing. I think it's important to maintain a season calendar. This keeps the season in focus. How many meetings until the next tournament? When are field trips? Things like that. We look at that every week. I think it's important to have a predictable schedule. This is very similar to what's laid out in the team meeting guide, but we have opening time for check-in. On Saturdays, we have a core values exercise. We have review our Kanban goals, and then we break out into 45-minute groups. And that works really well for us. We're meeting for 3 hours, as you can tell if you did that math. The debrief is like, what did you accomplish? Where do you need help? Those kind of things. And then, so then we have a timed agenda. So a timed agenda, it's a little bit different than the schedule and the calendar because it's now for that specific meeting, organizing what is going to be happening. And we just duplicate that deck. Time management, I mentioned we have a timekeeper. We have a big clock. It used to be a dark room clock, and they set it for 20 minutes. When it goes off, we have a 2-minute break. And then they set it for 20 minutes, and when it goes off, we have a 2-minute break. This is called the Pomodoro technique. And if you expect a student to sit for an hour and be focused, they're not going to do good work. If you expect them to stay focused for 20 minutes, they do awesome work, and then you give them a 2-minute break. And in that 2-minute break, they may go crazy. My girls do often. So consider the Pomodoro technique. Task management. This, I think, has helped our team a lot. The big picture of what needs to get accomplished is daunting to the coaches and the kids. And a Kanban board helps everyone visualize the workflow. We use Post-its, and then they move their way across the board. I think I have here's an example of me preparing for this meeting on my little Kanban board. I have to make slides. I made that commitment on 8/15, and it was due 9/26. When I started working on it on 9/14, it moved from task to in progress. Then I got stalled because I wanted feedback from Jackie, so I sent it to her. And now I'm not working on them. I'm waiting for my feedback. As a coach, when I see very many things in the waiting column, I can work with those kids to help them get the resources they need to get back in progress. And so when I got my feedback, I resumed on 9/20. And when I finished, it moved to that column. Now for the kids, I mean, this is ours from before we went to Worlds last year, the to-do column was empty. They came back and debriefed after state and filled up their to-do column. And you can see that there aren't very many things concurrent in the study, doing, and testing column because that's work in progress, and you have to manage that. You can't have too much stuff going on at the same time, or it doesn't get done well. And so one team might put a mission. You can't see my cursor over there. I can't see it. I guess you can, but they might have a mission in the to-do column. Somebody picks it out of there and moves it to the study column, and they study it. And when they're done, it goes to the done column. A different student might pick it up and start working on it, so it goes into the doing column. And they might discover that they need, or maybe under study, they needed an attachment, so that went as a to-do. And ultimately, it gets into the testing column and then finished. We don't put it in the done column until it's all documented and put in our notebook, so you can actually close your eyes on it. That graphic visual of watching Post-its move across the board, the kids love it. It really motivates them, and it lets me know what's going on. Any questions about team organization? All right, let's look at coaching core values. Now, core values is the foundation of FIRST. And FIRST is not about robots. This is Woody Flowers talking. It's not about robots. It's about using robots to teach gracious professionalism and cooperation. That's part of that covenant with the parents, that they know that. Respect, compete against the problem, respect the people. Mutual gain, build on the ideas of others instead of resisting or defeating them. That's summarized in gracious professionalism and cooperation. And these are the core values. You've seen them. I have my team learn them. That is absolutely not required, but I have them learn them so that they can, when somebody says, what was your team's impact? In their mind, they remember that definition. Now we go through this with a blank slide, and one of the students will, in their own words, define what discovery is. And then the slide will pop up with a blank in it, and the team learns that blank. Soon as they learn that, they've learned the core value. And not each week, but frequently we'll review a slide like this so that we continue to, the kids like little fancy things on the slides too, but so that we continue to keep core values as the foundation. Everything we do is a core value. It's really important that you read the rubric and understand it, because it tells you what discovery is, and it tells you, that you need a clear process for your goals, and that you need to have excellent time management. And when you use your core values to do everything that you do, the kids get it. So we do a Dickey board, we call it. Dickey stands for Discovery, Inclusion, Cooperation. At the top of every meeting, the kids have the opportunity to put something on the Dickey board. Something they discovered at school, something they used, they discovered robotics that they used at school or somewhere else. And then we review that before a tournament to pick examples to share with judges. We do a teamwork activity once a week. And this gives the kids an opportunity to work out their teamwork. We rotate the lead until for the first 6 weeks for sure, we rotate who is the lead core value person. And then we'll pick one, and that person will be the lead for the rest of the season. It's important to limit your exercise to 10 minutes, 5 minutes for the exercise, 5 minutes for questions, because that's what's going to happen in the judging room. And we use that model for other activities. For example, for picking a mission, the students might ask, does everyone understand the mission description? What does it clearly say? What does it not say? So somebody's leading that kind of a conversation. And we follow that process for most of what we do. Hope I'm not going too fast or too slow. Have the team think of ways that they can promote FLL, like wearing their shirts to school one day, or having an open house, or an open house in the library. Several teams in our community have done that. Mentor a team or just invite a team over. Participate in community events like Summerfest. Like the Jelly Jolts did that this season. It was really fun to see them. Visit schools. A lot of times these events, like a STEM event, is later in the season. So look for opportunities early on, like just going to your own science classroom or something to share. Or visit a senior center and have an ice cream social and share your project and your robot. But look for ways to promote FLL. And then at a tournament, realize that core values are 25% of your score toward championship. Someone is always watching the kids. I tell my kids that there are undercover judges walking around. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but when I'm in a judging deliberation, we get a lot of feedback from the floor. So it's referees seeing things, it's maybe another coach saw something and reported it. There's a lot of volunteers running around. So what happens gets back. And so make sure the parents, the kids, the siblings are all on board with good core values. When you go into the judging room, have fun. The judges are there because they love kids. Practice answering questions prompted by the rubric. There's good examples in the 2 new books this year. And RCV leads prompts during the activity. So they'll say, does everybody understand what we're supposed to do? Has anybody ever done anything like this before? Who has a good idea on how we should do it? I don't know their exact questions, but they have the lead asking the questions and prompting them. So I don't see any questions asked yet. So either I'm doing a really good job or I'm not. So coaching project. Now, a lot of people think the project is too science fairish and that we should just be doing robots. But in my opinion, project is one of the most important things they're doing for their real world growth. What they learn on this project will help them a lot. So understand the rubric. And the rubric has some criteria on it to understand your problem, explain your solution, and share the project. That if that those criteria aren't met, you can't get the championship. And I've seen really good teams disqualified because they failed to connect here somewhere. So make sure you go over the rubric with the kids. When you identify a problem, like our problem this year is identify a problem with a building or a public space in your community. It says identify a problem. My girl started out looking at a public space, and we're listing 20 problems with it. And I encourage them to narrow it to one, that you cannot solve all of the problems. Make sure you define every word. What is your community? And I think we've got an update or something that said your community is what you define it to be. It could be your country or another part of the world, not just your neighborhood or community. We make brainstorming problems another core values thing. We give each of the kids 10 3x5 cards, and they have 5 minutes to identify a problem, identify problems. So if you keep going back to bringing core values into how you do things, you're using that foundation to make a successful team. And to find your problem, you're going to talk to your family network, experts, search online, have them open their eyes when they're driving around, and then put the problems on the Kanban board. We work in pairs to research the different problems that they've identified, and they research whether it's been solved or not, and can a solution be improved? How many innovative solutions can they think of? Is there enough information available to make it a good project? And this kind of research makes a good homework assignment as well. Wow, I'm talking really slow. We've been going for 39 minutes, is that right? 7:20, no, only 22. When you have a consensus, you've found your problem and your solution. When you ask for input from your expert, back when you're doing the problem, it shows them respect by going back and sharing your solution with them, and then later sharing your presentation with them. And that keeps that person, in touch with what you're doing and really on your team almost. You need to have a way to share your presentation. Posters are very common. I don't think posters are required, but I'm not sure I've seen a team without one. I've seen posters that were handmade, handwritten, and posters that were typed and glued onto a board. And I've seen posters that were taken to Costco and printed out on a big sheet. But the purpose of the poster is to communicate your project, but also to remind your kids what to say when they're presenting to the judges, what their solution is. Practice presenting it, revise it, practice it, time it, revise it, share it with the experts, share it with another team, share it with your parents. Sharing is real important. It's one of those key things on the rubric. Oftentimes the presentation is a skit or a game show or a Shark Tank. Use your creativity. Let your kids use their creativity to come up with a way to really present their project in a way that effectively communicates it. You're going to display your poster or your prototype in the pit for others to see, and keep a pair of kids there as often as you can to explain it. When you go to set up your poster and prototype in the judging rooms, you give the judges your project notebook that you collected everything in, and they'll give it back to you at the end of the day. And the kids have 5 minutes from the time their first toe enters the room until the 5 minutes is up. So they've got to work into that 5 minutes, their setup and their whole presentation. But keep it fun. They should be having fun. And again, we have a project lead to make sure everybody participates in the QA. So the robot game, now the robot game, I'm not going to dwell a lot on it because our head ref is going to talk about that next week. But the robot game is like the most visible and exciting part of the tournament. It's what all the parents can see and any guests that you invited. And with an average of 8 kids per team and 18 adults and fans per team and 33 teams plus 100 volunteers, it's about 1,000 spectators. Most kids have never been performing in a crowd that large. Usually there are an unscored practice match and 3 official matches that are 2.5 minutes each. And the highest score is the team score. And at Washington tournaments, these are all after lunch. We assign reading the rules and missions as homework. And then we have them read the rules at the table, read them quickly. And then we have them read them slowly and look this, on another day, looking for what the missions don't say and ask absurd questions. Mark up the rules and missions according to any updates that you get. And it's like when we had an update that distinguished supported and supported only. So the kids went through all the rules and looked for the word supported and highlighted it in one color if it was supported and another color if it was supported only. So they didn't forget that distinction. And it's important that you reread mission text before you write a program. Now, this is an interesting question for you. Will this score? I put an innovative architecture item on top of those red bricks and pushed it all out at once. Will I get points for that? Will I get that 15 points? Is it completely in the circle? Does it say it must be touching the mat? Does it say it should or should not be supported? Is it equipment since you brought it and therefore it takes away the red unit points? Or is it a mission model since it comes with the mission models and is described in field setup? Now, I'm not going to give you my opinion on this, whether or not it scores, but your team needs to come up with questions like this and decide on their answers and be prepared to defend under the ref. One team might get a score for this because they can look at the rules and say this totally qualifies. And another team might do a bad job and not get points. But if you really want to know, you send an email to the head ref to get his opinion. You got to know your strategy and you got to be able to communicate that. So you need a table strategy, a launch strategy, and a mission strategy. And then you record that in your team engineering notebook. Try to do launches in, I'm using the terminology, launch is when you launch it out of home, out of the launch area. And mission is what that launch does. So try your launches in different orders. Maybe the launch that you normally run first is better if it's ran second. Try different launch teams. I've seen teams have a pilot and a co-pilot that never switch out. They run the entire match. They're like specialists on everything. And then on the next match, they have a different set of pilot and co-pilot. I've seen teams that rotate by launch, where the pilot for the first mission is tagged out. His co-pilot became the pilot, and a new guy comes in to be the co-pilot. So there are a lot of different ways to organize the kids on there. I think it's important that they all get a chance at the table. So I wouldn't take a strategy where I wouldn't do a strategy where I had a pilot and a co-pilot for the whole day. I want to get as many kids as I can experiencing that. I think in practice, you should time how long the total match takes and score it using the official score sheet so that the kids are familiar with it. Because after a match at a tournament, they've got to look over that score sheet with the ref to make sure they got all the points they think they earned. So they should be familiar with the score sheet. We try to measure how long the robot is in home or the launch area so that it's not actually out doing missions, because that's the time that kills you. And if you can just practice changing and timing attachment changes for all the launches, and get that time down as short as you can, you have more time to do missions. The robot game at the tournament is 25% of your score toward a championship. You want to put all your equipment in one of the inspection areas. You want to practice the first minute at the table. So you want to practice this at home so that you can do it there. Your first minute might be making sure all of the mission models are set up correctly, calibrating your sensors, other things that you need to do in that first minute. Have the kids stay calm and relaxed, but ask coaches and fans to cheer like crazy. We always hope for our best score on the first launch because that takes all the stress off the other two. It's never happened. for every match, know who's going to review the score sheet so that there isn't confusion at the end of the match. Be prepared to explain your mission strategy to the rest if you have an outside the box strategy. And the Lassies always shake hands with the other team. And we'd like that to be a tradition, like something that you expect every team to do. And make sure that you remember that only kids can talk to the refs before, during, and after a match. Let's see, coaching robot design. I might be talking too fast. I might be done. So you need to be able to explain, the kids need to be able to explain the robot and attachments. Explain how they are durable, efficient, balanced, speed and accuracy, and are easy to modify. Their programs need to be reliable, modular, sense the environment, easy to read. In order to be judged on this, you've got to bring your printouts. We put our printouts in an engineering notebook. And the way we make printouts, we're using Google Slides. So we'll do a screen copy of the program and paste it into a Google slide. Then just before the tournament, we print out those slides so we have them for the judges. But the kids, as part of their writing a mission, doesn't go into that done column until it's been put in that Google slide. Design and build a robot. I recommend a rookie team start with the education robot, and so does the handbooks, because it teaches the kids how to build a robot, and it can be pushed around to work out your strategy, and it can be used to learn how to program. New teams should keep it simple. Don't focus too much time on robot, or you won't be balanced, and you probably wouldn't qualify for any of the awards. Keep notes on your design process as you start to build your own robot. Track changes to it. Follow a clear process. Record it in your engineering notebook. I discourage my team from looking at the current season's robots and solutions on YouTube. We don't scout other designs. I think it's okay to look at Builder Dude and EV3 lessons and other online places to learn how to build a robot, but encourage your kids to build their own, because this is not about winning. It's not looking for the best robot out there. It's about discovery. And so I encourage you to have them build their own robot. But if they learn things in other places, have them give attribution. I judged robots at a tournament where the team came in with an FLL cast robot down to the color of the bricks. I mean, it looked like, if I took a picture of it, it looked just like the one on their website. And they never admitted it. I mean, I didn't ask them point blank, but we talked to them about how they got their design, and they really couldn't even answer a lot of questions about the robot. Don't let your kids get in that kind of a situation, because they're not learning when you do that. Programming missions. You choose a programming language that's age appropriate. Today, I'm going to assume that you all chose LEGO Mindstorms, but there are a lot of options. As Jim mentioned a couple days ago, EV3G, which is the software that LEGO sells with the robot. MakeCode, which is a Microsoft product. Robot C from Carnegie Mellon. EV3 Dev Python and LEGO MicroPython. I want you to be aware, though, that EVG3 will not run on Mac OS 10.15. Starting a couple weeks ago, when you open up your software, it says this. They are going to develop a Scratch version, which is going to be what's used on the Spike. So that might be a thing to look into, but November is kind of late to wait for that. I don't think mentor familiarity or comfort is a good criteria for picking a language. I don't think selecting a language to prepare kids to be professional coders is good criteria either. I think you want to select a language that is that's age appropriate for the kids. And I have a very high regard for EV3G, and I'm kind of sad to see it going away on the Mac, because we're all Macs. But if you want to select a language to prepare the kids for FTC next season, that's a cool criteria. Have them start learning Java-like programming, make code or something else. You can teach kids how to do something, but not when where to use it. So I'll talk to my kids about riding a bicycle and how they compensate to follow a line. And they'll, if you get a little bit off that line, you turn the wheel a lot to get back on it, and you wiggle a little bit, and pretty soon you get down to straight. And we'll translate that to how the robot works to follow a line. But I don't tell them that they need to use a line follower or tell them where to use it in a program. I give them tools to use. And one of the first things that you need to teach, or they need to learn, is how to move and turn a robot. And the difference between coasting and stopping. A lot of kids don't get that when I ask them about it at a tournament. Learn mind blocks. If you're programming on an iPad or a Chromebook, I still think they don't have mind blocks. But mind blocks or functions in the other languages allow you to create a toolbox of things. So our kids have a move mind block that will let the robot move in inches, and a turn mind block, actually they have a spin and a pivot, so it lets it turn the robot in degrees. And they have a mind block to square to a wall. And they use a light sensor to move to a line, to square to a line, follow a line, a gyro to go straight or to turn more accurately. And as your students get more understanding of what the robot's capable of doing with sensors, their game goes up a lot. The accuracy of their missions and reproducibility. Now, with the EV3G software, you can download your programs block by block. It saves the kids running from the computer to the robot, if you can download your programs over Bluetooth. But by being able to download a few blocks at a time, they can actually test one block at a time. So I think I have a slide that shows that. So we have them write their strategy in English and keep this in their engineering notebook. And the other thing we get a lot of questions about. I mean, I see a lot of kids at the tables hunting on their robot to find the next program to run. And I see questions on blogs, people saying, how do we get the recently used programs in the order that we want to run them, so that, there's things like that. But when the kids think about it, they're going to come up with a way to have a single program on their robot that runs all their missions. And that's what you want to encourage them to find. So when our pigeon code, if you will, I'm showing the little red brick there is the robot. And their instructions are to line up the robot to miss the units in the red circle. That's a line of sight lineup. They're not using a jig for that. And they don't need to use a jig for that. I'll show you why. The next thing they're going to do is move close to the black line. And then they're going to move to the line and square to the line. I thought turn left to the bridge was in there. There we go. Turn left to the bridge and move to that next line. So that's their pigeon code of what they want to do, and then move up the bridge to the flags. Because they're moving to that line and squaring to it, their lineup of the robot is not important as long as they're generally lined up. So it doesn't take a lot of time. And then that translates to their mind blocks. Move inches, 35 inches. Move to the line, square to the line, pivot left, move to the line, move inches. Their program is almost self-documenting. And so writing all these tools might take half of the season. Writing a mission might take 30 minutes. Robot judging at a tournament. This season, there will not be a table, field, or mission models in the judging room. There should be a laminated reproduction of the field for reference. But I expect, my kids, and I expect your kids now, to have their own map of every mission. There's a good model in the team meeting guide. And for every mission, for every launch, they'll draw, similar to what I did on the previous slide, they'll draw the path of their robot. Makes it very easy for them to explain to a judge. They've got to expect to explain their design process, their design changes they've made, and what they've learned. Make sure you send them into the room with a computer or printouts of the program, because one of the things on the rubric is about the program. If the judges can't see it, they can't judge it. So you bring your team engineering notebook and other materials that you need to explain, and practice answering questions prompted by the rubric. And again, there are examples in both books. So I already mentioned that FLL tournaments have the largest crowd that their kids have probably ever been in front of. And you got to help them relax. You know if you have kids that need a quiet place. In general, we meet in the parking lot, go in together. The kids haul their own stuff in. That way, we don't risk a core value breach of a parent carrying the robot or the computer or anything like that. Have them decorate their pit table. Always keep a pair of kids at the pit to share their project with people who come by and hand out bling. And we have a parent do it when they're in judging. Don't let anyone touch the team's robot, project, or other stuff, especially coaches and adults. Normally, judging is in the morning and robot games are in the afternoon, and you get a clear schedule when you check in. So identify your team with a distinctive shirt and bring buttons or other bling to give away. I mean, sometimes that people give away a little baggie full of candy or something that represents their project. We've had buttons made with our logo on them. My individual kids, not many of them collect buttons, but the team collects buttons, and we've got a place where we've got buttons from all over the world. The team should visit other pits and encourage other teams. Don't let any team member wander off alone. We even pair up to go to the bathroom. Plan lunch together in or near the pit if it's allowed. Most venues are the pits are in a cafeteria, so it's certainly allowed. You pre-order your lunch on site or from a nearby restaurant and have a parent pick it up. Take it totally off of your plate so that you don't have to worry about making sure the kids are fed. And we have parents bring in healthy snacks, like bananas and oranges, and keep water in the pit. And take lots of pictures, have your fans take lots of pictures and collect all those pictures, because you want to have those at an end of season party. At every tournament I've been to in Washington, the kids are escorted to the judging rooms and they haul their own stuff. So we let them go alone. And that way there's no risk of me overcoaching them on the way there. Even if allowed, don't send in a videographer. I think the last year in Washington, they weren't allowed. In the earlier years, they were. I don't know what's going to happen this year. Cheer loudly for other teams during games and awards. Shake hands after matches. Get to know other teams and coaches. Have fun. Have the kids participate in the dance lines at the end. And make sure everyone is patient for the award ceremony. There's some changes this year to how the judges are going to calculate advancement, and it might take longer. It might take less. It might take longer. Just make sure you set the expectation that people are patient. After the last game, there is usually a delay before judges come out. And know that if your team gets a trophy, that doesn't mean they'll advance. Advancement's based on an overall well-rounded team. And you might be really strong in project research and get a research trophy, but not advance. You got to make sure kids and parents know that those aren't related to each other. Postseason, I think this is important and fun. We have a post-tournament party with a slideshow. We were going to wait to learn a new programming language until postseason because the EV3 software is going away. but we're probably going to work that in because it's so important. Work it into our season. But have your kids post-season learn how to use sensors if they haven't been using them, improve other skills. Some of the LEGO models are really instructive. The elephant taught my girls how to use linear gears. It's a really cool model. We've done sumo matches and drag racing and tug of war. Like a sumo match teaches them how to use a light sensor to see a line, how to make a powerful robot. Those other competitions teach them speed versus power. So I think those are good things to concretize some of the things they need to learn. And plan field trips and late outs. We don't do sleepovers, but a late out is they come over to my house and we watch a movie and eat and go home at 11 o'clock at night. And then continue to share your work with schools and your community. My goal was to end at 7:45, and I think I did it. There are some good online places to get your questions answered. Of course, the First Washington FLL Coaches Group. FLL Share and Learn is a Facebook page. If you haven't seen that, you might check it out. It's very verbose. It's got an international audience. Some people ask really good questions. The one thing I like about this website is that it's moderated. So if somebody starts giving away a strategy, the moderators will delete it. They believe, like I do, that you get strategy on your own. You don't go to the web to look for strategy. EB3lessons.com by the same group can answer a lot of questions too. I don't even know if my kids know about it. I don't send them there, but that's where I go if they stump me. For example, we had a lot of trouble with gyro drift, and I went to EB3 lessons to learn about how to reset the gyro, and there's different ways to reset it based on the date code on your gyro, and who would have thought? And so these are a couple of kids who have just done an incredible job of collecting and documenting information. So it's a good place to go for you to learn so that you can guide them to their solutions. Go. So, did I get to the end without any questions? Jackie?
There are 3.
Okay. Go ahead.
So there's a couple relating to the project. How do you,
All right.
well, sort of relating to the project, how do you encourage brainstorming of the problem? Their team seems to be stuck and not being very creative.
Brainstorming the problem is one of the hardest parts of the project, in my opinion. And what we've done, I kind of alluded to it, is we've taken 3x5 cards and have the kids name places, buildings, and that they think have a problem, not necessarily what the problem is, but that they think have a problem. Like, for example, here in Kirkland, there's the AM/PM station on the corner of 124th and 116th that has been abandoned since my kids were babies, and it's an eyesore. And they look at that and say, that building is a problem. And so it's a core values exercise with everybody on their own for 5 minutes to list places they can think of, and then challenged to keep their eyes open when they're riding around in the car and look for other places that are a problem. And then we come back, we narrow down a few of those problems, and we do the same thing again with a 3x5 card, and everybody tries to list a solution. I found that if you have 6 girls sitting on the couch talking about problems and solutions, they can talk all day and not get anywhere. But if you make it a game and focus them for just 5 minutes, for 5 minutes, list as many solutions as you can to this problem, then they're really productive. We almost always end up having to vote. We with that list of problems, the girls will do some research on existing solutions, and if the problem has really been solved or isn't solvable, they'll take it off the list. But usually they, through researching solutions to a problem, they'll find a problem that they have a passion about solving that doesn't have a good solution. And that's really about all I can say on that, because my other coach is the one who really runs most of the project. Okay, what's the next question?
The other one is similar, about deciding the project solution. Should they talk to experts before finding a solution or get feedback after deciding on a solution as a team?
I think you bring, if you know an expert, especially if there's one that is connected to the team somehow, like an aunt, that you talk to them as soon as you have a good idea of your problem, then you can go look and talk to an architect you know or a biologist you know. But the University of Washington and other schools, if you can, there are professors that will be happy to talk to you. But I think you talk to them about the problem to validate that it's a problem that is real and should have a solution. Because then you can go back to that same expert when you've come up with a solution and share your solutions with them and get really good feedback on whether what you're doing has been done or feasible. Or sometimes, I mean, this has never happened to us, but I've seen it reported in some of the blogs I follow, that that expert gets really involved and helps the team a lot. But then when you come down, so now you've brought your expert into identifying the problem and you brought him into identifying the solution, and when you have your presentation, that same expert, I guarantee you, will be interested in hearing your presentation. Now, we've Skyped with our expert. We had an expert last year that lived pretty far away, and that works just fine. So I'd say you bring an expert in everywhere you can. Hope I answered that question.
Yep.
Any more?
There's one other one, but I'm actually going to take it offline because it's kind of involved.
Okay.
So, and I'm
if you have,
connect them with you. So there's another one.
if you have other questions.
Yeah. So this one says, our team is brand new and has 8 members. Ages vary from 9 to 12. What is the best way to keep them all engaged and involved with building and programming the robot, given that some are older, some younger, and have different levels of ability and skill?
And how many robots do you have? I wonder.
They didn't say.
So, yeah. So if you have one robot, we rotate in.
Just one. He just said just one.
Okay. So we only had one our first season. Now we have 2. But we break into 3 groups, 2 kids per group. The beginning of the season, we are all together coming up with our project problem and solution, and we're all together learning to program and build our robot. That's kind of hard with young kids. My girls were 4th grade when I started with them, and there was a lot of distractions. But I did things like, for example, for programming, they each wrote a program to make the robot. We did a sort of not like sort of like a drag race. They had to drive the robot 10 feet on the floor and stop within on a line at the end. And so they all had to learn how to, and we're teaching a My Blog. So they had to write a My Blog that converted rotations to inches and have the robot drive 30 feet and stop in that line. We put a pillow on the other side of the line in case they went too far. But so it was like a game and it was fun. And they all put their program on the robot and we ran them one right after the other. And the winner was the one who got closest to the line. So we did this similar thing for turning. We did similar things for learning light sensors. We just made a game out of it. Now, we had the luxury of 3 computers, access to 3 computers. Otherwise, I think you have to divide up and have some kids learning about robot and some kids working on project. Hope I answered that well.
I thought so. What are the deliverables for core values judging?
There are no deliverables per se. In the past, there has been a core values poster for the semifinals and finals. I don't think there's going to be core value posters this year. Is that right, Jackie?
That is correct.
So you don't have a deliverable per se, but you are going to fill out a team info sheet. And in that team info sheet, you can describe some of the things that your team has discovered. That's where we use our Dicky board to come up with those things. The judges may not have time, they're not expecting something like that. They may not have time to look at it, but your kids prepared it and will have reviewed it before they go in, and they'll be able to answer questions now when the judges say, how did you use your FLL core values outside of robotics? What skill did you learn that you can use outside of robotics? It seems like they really want to know how your experience in FLL affects your whole life. And so you're having your kids look for those examples. So the deliverable is your kids are going to be doing a core values project, and they're going to do that, have fun doing that. It's a teamwork exercise. They're going to have fun doing that. They're going to work together. You're going to have a process that you worked on for how they approach that problem. So that's in a way a deliverable. And then you're going to be answering the judges' questions, and you're going to have practiced, because those are in the guides, answering some of those questions. And you're going to practice that throughout the whole season, not right before the tournament. So it's part of the foundation of their experience in FIRST. Because remember, FIRST is really strong. The core values is the foundation. And so keep it part of everything. But there's no deliverable per se. You don't have to give anything to the judges. Some teams will sing a song or do something, but none of that is required. There's nothing deliverable, if I understood what you meant by deliverable.
So, and then they asked the same thing about robot design.
Now, robot design is different. It's easier. In the past, there's been a robot design executive summary required. I don't know, Jackie, is that required this year?
That is still up in the air. We're still trying to figure that out.
Whether it's required or not. Okay, whether it is required or not, I highly recommend you have your team put together a robot design executive summary, and the specs for that are on First LEGO League website. If they're not in there for this challenge, they're in there for the challenge last year, because this will help your kid think through everything about their design process. Process is real important. Like we use that Kanban board to demonstrate our process quite a bit. But they need to be able to explain what they've learned, what they've changed about their robot, why they changed it, was it successful? The kids know the answers to this, but if you have it written down, then it can be reviewed and they can have better memory when they're in front of the judges. Some kids come in with like a presentation where one guy is talking about the robot, and our robot's name is Lassie, and it's got 503 parts in it, something like that. And the next kid will say, we choose our missions based on which ones looked easiest to do, or which ones looked most fun, or we picked all the missions on the far side of the board first. So whatever their strategy is, somebody's prepared to describe that. And then a particular mission. This is our favorite mission, and it uses light sensors, and it uses a touch sensor, and it, pointing it out on their laminated mat, it goes down to this line, and when it sees it, like the model I gave you, it turns left and goes up the ramp. So somebody's prepared to describe, and this is like rehearsed. The judges, as a judge, I like that because it gives me spot points to ask them questions. And there may not be a deliverable per se. They should be prepared. This is really important this year. They've got to be prepared to describe their robot, even though it's right in front of the judges. The judges will not see it run. So they don't know anything about its reliability, its durability. The kids have got to be prepared to say that. Our robot runs this mission reliable 100% of the time. Now, the truth will come out when the scores are posted later, and that's before judging is done. But your kids have got to be able to describe their robot, and the best way to do that is with an engineering notebook and an executive summary that captured everything that you did. So our notebook is filled with pictures of the kids building, pictures of the kids comparing all the wheels to see which one they want to use, and then they describe, why they picked a particular wheel. The kids will look through that book before we go to a tournament just to refresh. They can't remember 12 weeks ago when they picked their wheels how they did it. But if they took pictures and can review it themselves, it's back fresh in their mind. And when the judge asks a question, they'll know the answer. I hope that was helpful.
Yeah. So Scott, for teachers that have limited amount of time or are feeling overwhelmed, where would you recommend that they really focus on? I know it's different for you because you're not a teacher, but
yeah. I've been in that situation, and I think these team meeting guide and engineering notebooks are great for the classroom setting. They're designed for a 90-minute class. I think they expect that you're only meeting once a week. They give you ideas about, like they call them sparks, I think, to look at some of the missions and let that bring up a topic of discussion. Like you look at the little girl on a wheelchair on a swing, and you say, what about our parks? Are they accessible? I mean, in the beginning, with it, I really empathize with the teacher who's like a 5th grade teacher and has a rookie team every year. But it's nice to have 1 year of experience under your kid's belt. But you have to focus on all of it. You have to be balanced. You've got to keep core values, project, robot, all in focus. So figure out how to divide up your time, whether like the team meeting guide says, you divide your kids in half. And if you look at, basically they have half of the group working on project one day and the other half on robot, and the next day they flipped so that they're all getting the full experience. I'd like to be in the classroom. Maybe one of you could invite me to see your struggles so I can learn how to better help. I will say this, that when we see teams, a lot of times they're 4th and 5th grade teams, and I'm thinking robot. They'll come in with the education robot and very simple attachments and run 2 missions. They don't get a huge penalty for that because their robot's durable and it's reliable, and they've got a clear strategy, and they're accomplishing their missions. And nowhere does it say you have to, in robot design judging, you have to get 500 points. You can have a couple good missions and then end up with a very good score on your rubric. I don't have anything else to say on that.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott. That looks like it for the questions.
Okay.
Thank you for your time and for your wonderful presentation. Thank you for everyone that has attended. Again, I will be taking Scott's presentation and probably a summary of the questions, and I will be posting that up on our website on firstwa.org in the Team Resources section under First LEGO League in the Workshops and Webinars section, as well as also with the one from Tuesday night, and then the ones from next week and the following week will go up there as well. Join us next Tuesday for the robot game webinar, and Thursday for the webinar that will kind of take a deeper look at judging from Aaron Schmitz, our judge advisor. And then the following week we will have one on fundraising. Thank you again, everyone. And thank you, Scott, very much for your insight from a coach. It was very nice having you with us.
Yep. Don't hesitate to contact me. I'm pretty available.
Yep, and Scott was nice enough to put all of his contact information up there. My email's up there too, along with Kevin Tirico, our head referee. So again, thank you guys, and I will be ending the webinar for this evening. We will see you guys all later. Good luck to all your teams. Good night, Scott.
Good night.